news. And now for a review of what's making the newspaper headlines around the world this morning. Let's bring in a RISE analyst, Dr. Constance Ikoku. Good morning, Constance.
A wonderful morning to you, Charles. I hope you're good today.
I am very good today.
All right, I was focusing on Nkechi, who was yawning. Are you tired already?
It's too early.
No, she's just booting.
Just booting, yes.
Oh, rebooting.
Rebooting.
Morning, Yolanda.
Good morning, Dr. Constance. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Okay, to look at the papers with us today, we have Eniola Akinkuotu. He is the Chief International Correspondent of the Africa Report. Hello there and welcome to the program. We'll begin with this day. There we have 27.5% MPR, MAN, ICCI, NECA, Lament, prohibitively expensive credit. Say Nigeria now sixth most expensive credit market globally. Finance costs surged by over 44%. The Monetary Policy Committee, after its meeting Tuesday, decided to keep all its monetary policy unchanged, relying on monetary policy tightening. In spite of criticism against this policy, for some months now, the Central Bank of Nigeria has kept it, and the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is right to call attention to this unsustainable borrowing costs, although this is not the first time they're doing this. Eniola, please.
Well, I'm not surprised by what the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is saying. I mean, it's the general feeling of most Nigerians. 27.5% interest rate is still too high, especially for a country that is pursuing a $1 trillion economy that, they want to achieve it before 2030. So what's going on now is that the CBN is sacrificing economic growth for price stability. They're trying to curb inflation because the inflation rate has not gone down significantly. What happened 2 months ago was that there was a rebasing. It sort of dropped, but in real terms, it didn't really drop. And it increased. Now, again, it just reduced by about 0.4% last week based on the statistics that was released by the NBS. And so when there's little access, when there's very little access to credit, or when credit is very expensive, you will see limited economic growth. Just like last year, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria said that the last 6 months of 2024, they had over 2 trillion naira, 2.2 trillion naira of unsold goods. And so, the manufacturers are facing a lot, facing difficult access to credit. The exchange rate issue is just now that it's beginning to stabilize. And so unfortunately, I don't know how the government is going to go about it, or the CBN, because I really pity Cardoso. On the one hand, you want to reduce inflation, and on the other hand, you want to spur economic growth. So it's I really don't know at this point. I think it's between the devil and the deep blue sea. I think Zero Rufai that said some years back that when you have exchange rates like this, when you have the interest rate like this, only a drug dealer can actually make profits with such interest rates.
Well, Nigerian businesses must be one of the most rugged all over the world. Let's look at Vanguard newspaper. Boko Haram informants among politicians, soldiers, according to Zulum. A bombshell, right there from Governor Babagana Zulum of Borno State. We've always known this, but a northern governor, for that matter, saying it loud, that's different. And does this help to move the needle, or how do you see this playing out?
Jonathan said it some 10 years ago that Boko Haram had infiltrated his government too. So we know that one of the reasons the Boko Haram menace has remained in the front burner since 2009 is that you have internal collaborators. And it's like that when you have a war that is prolonged. You always have internal sabotage. It even happened many years ago in the American Civil War when you had a general in the person of Benedict Arnold. So these sort of things are not new. Who was the governor last year? 2 years ago. I think it was Matawale who said that some emirs were even in cahoots with the bandits. And so it's not new. What the government needs to do is make sure that they are fished out. Put in mechanisms in place to, smoke them out. That's the only way. If not, we're not winning this war.
He said that the military lacks the necessary equipment to fight what he called the tech-savvy insurgents, and the defense headquarters hasn't said anything about this, and perhaps this indicates some level of unseriousness on the part of the government, you know, whether you call it connivance, sabotage. If we know that soldiers and politicians are involved in undermining the country, how do you allow these people to walk around scot-free?
Well, actually, the Chief of Defense Staff did mention earlier, because someone else had actually mentioned the fact that the insurgents had superior weapons. The Chief of Defense Staff did mention the fact that the military had taken, had actually received, so to say, new weaponry that would probably match the Boko Haram insurgents. However, what we're hearing from the governor is different from what the CDS did say earlier. So, well, given what's going on there, apparently the Nigerian military might just need to upgrade whichever way. In terms of arms, in terms of intelligence.
We hear about this upgrade all the time, Charles, right? You know, there's more money. Budgeted,
exactly.
Yeah, for defense. Nkechi wanted to
Yeah, I was just going to say what you said. We always hear about this upgrade, and we always hear about the Nigerian Armed Forces say, look, we need funding, we need equipment, we need this and we need that. And then the CDS coming out and say, okay, we actually have this equipment. So if you have this equipment, you have all the funding, what is going on? For the governor to come out, Eniola was saying that he feels bad or he pities the CBN governor. I pity the governor of Governor Babagana Zulum, because he's been coming out multiple times to speak on this issue. And now he's even going outright to say, look, I'm naming, this is what is going on. It's
Can he name the people? Actually,
not name the people, but
maybe he should.
At least he's calling a spade a spade.
He's calling a spade a spade, but you know, this is what they always do. They always say, look, we know that there are big wigs that are funneling these issues, which is why we cannot solve them. And I think we need to hear more from the defense headquarters. Their silence is really deafening at this point. It's really sad, this situation. He's been talking about it, and I just hope it doesn't become too late.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. I also want to echo those sentiments by saying that what Governor Babagana Zulum is doing right now is actually very brave. This is literally a call for help, you know, a cry for help that, look, the state of Borno is literally struggling right now with this level of insurgency. And to call out politicians and soldiers, that's a very brave thing to do in the wake of what is going on in the state.
All right, let's move on to New Telegraph. Dangote, without local investors, foreigners won't come to Nigeria. He said this in Taraba State while he was attending the state's business summit. I mean, so true, this statement from Aliko Dangote. My sense is that Nigerian businesses want to invest, but it's not an easy economic space. And when I was reading this story, what came to mind is China. Although it's a totally different political system. Nevertheless, if you look at how aggressive the government is in terms of policies that support small businesses and provide the funding and open the doors, you know, to fund them, that's why China is clearly the factory of the world. And this is not impossible in Nigeria. Anyone can jump in here. Yeah,
I think, I mean, Dangote is echoing everyone's sentiments. If you have local investors, if you have MSMEs, SMEs struggling, gasping for breath under the weight of poor infrastructure, inconsistent policy, insecurity, overregulation, high interest rates, whatever it is, you won't really even have foreign investors coming to line up at our door. So I think it's very important to have that space and ease of doing business for Nigerians, because we have this Nigeria First policy now, but you also have manufacturers who have to borrow money at a very, very high percentage. I think Nigeria is the 6th most expensive country to borrow money in, even higher than Ukraine and Argentina. And so I think Dangote is talking about what everyone is thinking in the country.
All right, the Punch newspaper, Germany warns Nigeria, neighbors against Russia alliance. The German Consul General to Nigeria, Mr. Werner, has cautioned West African countries against partnering with Russia for peace, security, and stability for their countries. He stated this at the International Conference on ECOWAS at 50. He particularly warned Sahel countries relying on Russia for their defense, noting the relationship was not driven by true interest and respect for their countries. I mean, I read this and I was like, can you imagine? So it's the Western countries that respect African nations? Or, I mean, what's the evidence that, you know, we've had centuries of dealings? My sense is that this is just a classic case of Africans being treated as if they cannot think for themselves. And I'll lay your thoughts on this. I know you had something to say in the newsroom.
Did you expect Germany to say otherwise? I mean, this is just classic international politics at play. Germany and its Western allies, the EU, of course, the United States and others, they've all been sent packing by the juntas in the AES, you know, in Burkina Faso, in Niger, and also in Mali. And so those three countries have embraced Russia because Russia and China are the only ones willing to invest there and to assist them, you know, without putting a caveat or insisting that, oh, they have to adhere to human rights and democratic norms. And so, of course, Germany and others are not happy about this, and hence that's why you are having this statement. But, I mean, is Germany going to recognize those people? Because Germany has been critical, too, of those juntas in those particular countries, you know, calling for a return to democratic rule and all that. So if Germany is not going to go the way of Russia, I don't know whether these people are going to listen to Germany's entreaties.
All right.
The German consul said is a case of the pot calling the kettle black. Absolutely so, because, I mean, what benefit has African countries or have African countries gained from their former colonial masters, the EU and the United States? The very same thing the German consul is accusing Russia of is the very same thing that they are doing to Africa. So please, why don't we try another strategic partner and see how it goes? After all, he has not provided any evidence. It's just speculation or suspicion on his part that this is what Putin and his people are up to. But Africa will definitely be exploring other strategic partners besides the Western business partners who have actually rather exploited Africa for their own benefits.
It's all about survival for everyone. The Guardian newspaper reps rallies of FG to rescue stranded Nigerians in Saudi Arabia. The story is that Saudi Arabia changed its labor laws, and this has pushed many Nigerians living out there out of work. Some faced with high fees for renewal of their documents and work permits. Some domestic workers, such as drivers, were laid off, and they can neither afford renewal nor exiting the country. In short, many are unable to regularize their stay. Now, there's a call for an amnesty for those willing to return home. I mean, at the end of the day, home is home. Japa is not easy. You know, sometimes it just does not work. And well, when you tell people, they don't believe it. Yolanda, if you want to chip in here.
Yes, it's true. I actually agree with you on what you said about Japa is not what many people believe it to be. But I don't think many people are ready for that type of conversation. But I will stick to the headline of, rescuing the Nigerians in Saudi Arabia. And indeed, this is government responsibility. And the situation shows several things. It shows how bad the situation is in Nigeria. For many people to just say, all right, I would rather go than to stay in an economy that's falling apart. But as well, I think the government needs to step in even more because of that reason, to say, look, we know the country is bad, but let's bring our people back to Nigeria and sort it out here.
All right, other headlines are Daily Trust, 2027 ADC as new bride. This is talking about the coalition that is being put together to unseat President Bola Tinubu in 2027. Then Wike raises alarm over FCT security health sector. Leadership newspaper, outcry over soldiers, politicians' involvement. We've seen that in the insurgency. We also have cut interest rate now, manufacturers beg CBN, onto Daily Independent. Finally, much touted coalition to unseat Tinubu picks ADC. Then at the bottom there we have Ajero's NLC behind LP's woes. Not FG says Abure faction. Finally to Daily Sun. UK 3.5% inflation surge deepens financial pressure on Nigerians living abroad. Only 3.5%. They should come and see over 20% in Nigeria. And then beside the mask there we have a court warns Kano's lawyer Ejimako against professional misconduct. And then also Zulum also there on that front page talking about Boko Haram and insurgency. On to the international headlines. Daily Graphic. Governor explains economic gains. Governor of the Central Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Asiama, said that the decline in inflation to 21.2% was shaped by a combination of monetary measures. Then to Citizen, of course, we have here President Ramaphosa and Trump on the front page. It says White House shootout, not an actual gun shootout, but nice photo there with both of them in a strong handshake. And to the story, Donald says, horrible, death, death, death. Look at the burial site all over the place. And the US president waves a stack of, in quote, evidence as Ramaphosa during their meeting is taken aback. But his A-team came to rescue. I mean, we all watched the meeting yesterday. Well, the Zelensky treatment did not work on President Ramaphosa. He came prepared. And Trump talking about genocide, I don't know, casually about it. That's so bogus. Anyone can say something.
Yesterday we were talking about how Cyril Ramaphosa would not be treated like the Ukrainian president, or even if he tried, it would not work. I think Ramaphosa came in with so much poise. He came there to actually talk about the trade tariffs that they're having in South Africa. They're staring down 30%. And that was overshadowed by Donald Trump making them pull out that whole production to watch Julius Malema, to watch different videos and bringing out all that stack. However, you have data from South Africa's own police saying that, look, out of over 26,000 murders that they had last year, only 44 were linked to farming communities and just 8 to farmers. And you have to remember that Donald Trump's base includes white nationalists, far-right groups who've been pushing this myth of genocide for far too long. And what he just did was give them presidential oxygen to continue that. But I think Ramaphosa held himself very, very well. And I hope he got out what he actually came to Washington for.
Yes,
I'd like to agree entirely with what Nkechi has said. You know, Ramaphosa really held his ground. His level of diplomacy and poise is just at the highest level. I think Trump expected him to, fall apart at the seams by mentioning all these triggering things about the deaths, bringing out the projector, showing Julius Malema speaking, but it really didn't work. And
it was a show.
I enjoyed thoroughly how Cyril went on to mention that if this genocide really was going on, how is it possible that I am here with 3 white ministers who have not said a word about it? Is it possible? And one of them being, the leader of the DA, Minister of Agriculture. So also to pick out on statistics, according to the Republic of South Africa in 2017, a report came out that 72% of agricultural land in South Africa is actually owned by white people, and 15% by colors and 5% by Africans. How is this possible if the white man is truly the one who is oppressed?
All right, a lot to say on that. I'm sure there will be more in the coming days. The Sun newspaper, Justice Secretary's vow, pedos to be castrated, mandatory drugging of perverts. Pedophiles and rapists are facing chemical castration in the United Kingdom. Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood is exploring this idea to go tough on offenders. I mean, this is new, but according to this story, you have this idea that is also used in California where they are castrated. All I can say here is that the UK is really changing. And finally, to Daily Mirror, Labour's winter fuel U-turn care, we get it. Now, to the people, they eventually succeeded in getting the Prime Minister to announce a U-turn on the controversial winter fuel payments. I guess this indicates that the Prime Minister is listening after Labour took a beating at the polls recently. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there, except anyone has a very quick comment.
No.
None? Okay. Akinkuotu,
I was muted.
Okay, Chief International Correspondent of the Africa Report. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, Dr. Constance Ikoku, for leading us through the newspaper review here on Daybreak. That's all the time we have for you. Thanks for watching. I'm Nkechi Nana.
And I'm Charles Eruka. It's goodbye from me.
I'm Yolanda Robert. Please do keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. Goodbye.